What would you do if you had just 10 minutes left to save your job, but on the way you saw an old man stuck in the pouring rain with a flat tire? A young black delivery worker faced that exact choice. He chose to do the right thing, and paid for it with the very job he was trying to keep. But what he didn't know was that the old man wasn't just any stranger. And from that moment on, his life would take a turn no one ever saw coming. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. The rain wasn't just falling, it was punishing. Thick sheets of water slammed against windshields, bounced off the concrete, and soaked the worn seams of Malik's jacket in seconds. The afternoon rush had turned downtown into a wet maze of honking horns, blinking brake lights, and steaming engines. Every stoplight felt like a ticking clock. Malik's phone vibrated in his pocket, a final warning from the delivery app. VIP order, ETA breach in 10 minutes. Late delivery == performance violation. He gritted his teeth and revved his electric moped forward, weaving carefully between two honking sedans. His gloves were slick from the rain, his helmet visor fogged, but none of that mattered. This was his last order of the day, the one that might just save his job. He wasn't just another delivery guy. Malik was a 25-year-old black man from the east side of the city, raised by a mother who worked 2 jobs and a grandfather who taught him how to fix bikes, tell the truth, and show up for people, even when no one else would. But now, in this corporate app world, Malik was reduced to a number, and that number had been dipping for weeks. Today had to go right. He took a sharp left at 8th and Main, his tires sliding just slightly on the painted crosswalk. He had memorized every shortcut in this part of the city, every alley that could save him 30 seconds, every building entry where he could skip the elevator. If he could just make this last delivery in time, his weekly metrics might crawl back up above the red. If not, he didn't want to think about it. Then he saw it. Flashing hazard lights blinked like distress signals through the sheets of rain. A silver Lexus was parked crookedly at the intersection, half on the shoulder, its hood catching the rain like a drum. Standing beside it was an elderly white man, thin, maybe late 70s, holding a wrench in one trembling hand and an owner's manual in the other. His dress shirt clung to his back like tissue. His tie was soaked, his gray hair stuck to his forehead as he knelt, slowly, painfully, next to a flat tire. Malik's instinct kicked in. He slowed down. Just a little, just enough to see the whole picture. The man looked terrified, his fingers slipped on the wet jack, his eyes darted to the traffic as trucks barreled past, spraying waves of dirty rainwater inches from his legs. Nobody stopped. Not one car. Malik's heart pounded. His eyes darted to the delivery bag strapped behind him. 10 minutes. If I stop, I blow the time window. No excuses, the system doesn't care why. He looked again at the man, the tremble in his arms, the hopelessness in his face. The rain wasn't letting up, and if that jack gave out, or the man slipped, anything could happen. For one breathless second, he froze, and then his mind reached back, almost involuntarily, to a memory he hadn't thought about in years. A younger Malik, maybe 10, standing under a tree in their old neighborhood. His grandfather, sleeves rolled up, kneeling beside a rusty bicycle with a tire pump in one hand. He looked up at Malik with that warm, knowing smile and said, "Helping someone in need is never the wrong decision. Especially when nobody else will." That voice cut through the sirens, the rain, the pressure, like it always did. Malik glanced at the app's countdown one last time, and killed the engine. He pulled over, hopped off the moped, and pulled the spare poncho from under his seat. Without a word, he jogged toward the Lexus. The man looked up, startled. "Sir," Malik said gently, unfurling the poncho and draping it over the man's shoulders. "Let me take a look." The old man blinked at him, unsure if he was dreaming. I've got it. I just need a minute. Malik knelt beside the flat, already sizing it up. "Your jack's slipping on the wet asphalt. Let me stabilize it. You got a wheel wedge or a brick?" The man shook his head slowly. "I don't even know what that is." "It's all right, I've got you." Malik moved like someone who had done this 100 times. He reached into his bag for a rag, adjusted the jack, slid in a chunk of broken curb he spotted nearby to brace the wheel. The rain soaked his back, but his hands moved steady and sure. The man stood above him, holding the poncho like a shield, still trying to understand what was happening. No one else stopped, no one even slowed down. Just Malik, kneeling in the cold rain, trading time he didn't have, for a stranger he didn't know. And with every crank of the lug wrench, the clock ticked louder in his mind, but he didn't regret it. Not for a second. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it had grown heavier, colder, more relentless, like the city itself had joined in on punishing him. Malik stood outside the back entrance of Swift Drop Logistics, his body shivering from the weight of soaked clothes and muscles stiff from crouching beside that Lexus in the storm. His gloves were still damp, his delivery bag slung over one shoulder, lopsided and heavy with the weight of failure. The glass doors loomed ahead, fogged and glowing under flickering fluorescent lights. Inside, the warehouse hummed with low chatter and the dull rhythm of conveyor belts. His shift was technically over, but the app had locked his account before he could even submit a report. Instead of a confirmation screen, it simply said, "Delivery window missed, please report to supervisor." He stepped inside. The cold linoleum shocked his soaked boots. Water pooled around his feet as he walked across the lobby toward the service counter, his every footstep echoing under the artificial light. A young man with a headset gave him a passing glance, then returned to sorting out receipts. No one greeted him, no one asked if he was all right. Malik stood in front of the counter, waiting. A few other delivery riders brushed past him without acknowledgement, their uniforms dry, faces indifferent. It was like he didn't exist. After a few minutes, the manager emerged from the back office. Mr. Ranklin, 40-something, pressed white shirt, hair gelled too tight, a Bluetooth headset always hanging from one ear like a badge of rank. He didn't even look at Malik at first, just tapped away at a tablet, muttering numbers to himself. Malik tried to clear his throat, politely, but his voice cracked. "Mr. Ranklin." "It's Malik," he said, the words catching on his tongue. Now Ranklin looked up, squinting, eyes scanning Malik's drenched clothes with a flicker of disapproval. "You're late," he said flatly. "I know," Malik replied, fighting the chill in his voice. There was a situation. A man was stranded in the middle of 8th and Main, his tire blew in the rain. I stopped to help. He was elderly, looked like he could have slipped into traffic. I couldn't just leave him there, sir. Ranklin let out a dry, humorless exhale through his nose. Not a laugh, just air with judgment. "Malik, you're aware this is your third consecutive KPI breach this week." "Yes, but Malik started, his voice slightly louder than intended. He lowered it quickly. "I was only a few minutes late today. I mean, I thought the system would." "The system doesn't care why," Ranklin snapped, holding up the tablet like it was scripture. "All it sees is red. We've had this conversation, haven't we? You miss targets, you get flagged. 3 in a row and the contract ends. It's policy. You signed it." Malik stood in silence, dripping onto the tile. The neon light buzzed above them like a fly trapped in a jar. He swallowed hard. "I wasn't late because I was slacking," he said quietly. "I made a choice to help someone who could have been seriously hurt. I know the rules, but this doesn't feel right." Ranklin didn't blink. "Life's full of hard choices. You chose someone else over your work. And now I have to choose the business over you." There was no apology, no emotion, just protocol in human form. Malik exhaled slowly, almost shakily, as Ranklin tapped a few times on his screen. A chime sounded. The delivery app logged him out permanently. "That's it?" Malik asked, not expecting an answer but needing to ask. Ranklin gave a slow nod. "You'll receive your final invoice by end of week. Lockers already reassigned." Malik's eyes flickered toward the back of the room. The place he used to clock in. The place where he'd joke with a couple of the other riders on slow days, where he'd wait for assignments and drink bad coffee while staring at the wall of top 10 drivers he'd never made. It wasn't much, but it was what he had. And now it wasn't. He turned without a word, delivery bag still over his shoulder. A few co-workers saw him as he passed, the guy from warehouse inventory, the receptionist who once asked about his playlist, but none of them spoke. They looked away, eyes flicking down to their phones or out into space, pretending they didn't see the guy who just got cut loose. The automatic doors opened with a hiss, and he stepped back into the rain. It was darker now. The streetlights cast halos in the puddles, and the air smelled like asphalt and spilled gasoline. Malik didn't bother to run, or even pull up his hood. He just walked, the rain streaking down his face like sweat, or maybe tears. He couldn't tell anymore. He put in one earbud. The music started, not loud, just a low familiar melody, something his grandfather once played on vinyl during slow Sunday mornings. Soft piano, soulful. It didn't match the mood, but it helped. A little. His thoughts churned, louder than the music. What was the point? Was kindness supposed to cost this much? Did doing the right thing always mean losing something else? There was no answer in the silence that followed, just the rhythmic splashes of his boots through the gutter water, and the hollow ache of disappointment that settled somewhere between his ribs. He had made the choice, he'd do it again. But tonight all he had was the empty street ahead, the sting of the rain, and the heavy truth that being a good man didn't always pay. At least not right away. The air in Malik's apartment was still, too still. The kind of silence that buzzes in your ears after a long week of nothing happening. The kind of silence that felt louder than the noise of the outside world. A full 7 days had passed since he lost the job, but the sting hadn't dulled. The weather had cleared, but inside that second-floor walk-up studio, a gray cloud lingered. Malik sat at the small fold-out table near the window, elbows pressed into the vinyl surface, eyes fixed on a government benefits website that refused to load properly. His laptop fan whirred like it was tired of being asked to try. The cursor blinked on a page that read, "Submit unemployment claim," and Malik stared at it like it had insulted him. He hadn't wanted it to come to this. The room smelled faintly of old wood and detergent. The fridge made that familiar clicking noise it always did before kicking back into its humming cycle. On the wall hung a faded photo of his grandfather in overalls, holding a wrench with one hand and a younger Malik in the other. Beneath the photo, a post-it note in his mother's handwriting still clung to the edge of the frame. "Don't let the world make you bitter. Stay Malik." He exhaled through his nose, leaned back in the chair, and rubbed his face. His savings were low. Rent was due in 10 days. He hadn't told his mom how bad things had gotten, and he sure as hell hadn't told her he was about to file for unemployment. He clicked the form. The screen froze, then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, assuming it would be another debt collector or a temp agency with fake promises. But it wasn't. The number was blocked. His thumb hovered over the green icon for a moment. Then he answered. "Hello? Malik Carter," said a voice. Mal, calm, measured, older but with the kind of tone that didn't ask, it stated. "Yes, this is Malik. This is Adrian Lindley, VP of Operations at Monarch Freight Systems. We're a national logistics firm based in Chicago. You've been referred to us by a senior partner, and we'd like to extend you an offer for a 2-week trial contract at our central fulfillment hub." Malik sat up straight. He hadn't blinked yet. What? I'm sorry. Who referred me?" There was a pause on the other end. Not long, just enough to make his skin prickle. "Mr. Harold Quinn," the voice said. "Matter of fact, retired chairman of Quinn National Transport. He's now a silent partner in several logistics networks, including ours. He mentioned an incident involving a flat tire. Said you helped him, without knowing who he was." Malik's heart punched his ribs. "The Lexus, the rain, that man. You're saying he remembered me?" "He did more than remember," said Lindley. "He gave your name, described the situation, and told us verbatim. Give this young man a real shot. He earned it. That's not something we hear every day from him. So, here we are." Malik didn't respond. Couldn't. His mind was trying to reconcile the bitterness of the last 7 days with this sudden beam of light piercing straight through it. "You'll need to come in for an orientation by Thursday," Lindley continued, professional as ever. "If you're interested, we can send details to your email. You'll be working in operations support initially. It's contract, but it pays full rate with opportunity for advancement." There was another pause. This one was on Malik's end. His mouth opened, but words didn't come right away. Finally he said, yes, I'm interested. I can be there Thursday." "Good. Expect the info by the end of the day, Lindley said. Mr. Quinn's instincts are rarely wrong. Don't make him regret it. The line clicked off. Malik lowered the phone slowly. The rain outside had returned, faint now, tapping lightly against the window pane like an echo from a week ago. He stood there frozen, as his body processed what just happened. Every fiber inside him wanted to cheer, to shout, to laugh out loud, but a part of him was still too raw, too worn out to believe this wasn't some elaborate prank. He sat back down, staring at the table, then glanced at the photo on the wall. The old man in the picture smiled knowingly, just like he always had. A few minutes later, the front door opened. His mother entered, umbrella dripping, scarf tugged off with one hand, grocery bag in the other. She looked at him and paused. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, setting the bag down. "I got a call," Malik said, barely above a whisper. "A job, a real one, Monarch Freight. They said a man I helped referred me." The old man, from the flat tire. His mother raised an eyebrow, not in disbelief but in that slow, wary way mothers do when they're waiting to make sure something is real before celebrating. "And, what did you say?" "I said yes. I go in Thursday." She smiled just a little, then sat beside him. "You don't sound happy," she said gently. I'm scared," Malik confessed. "It's a big company. I've never worked anywhere that size. I don't know anyone there. What if I screw it up?" His mother placed her hand over his. "Son, you already did the hard part. You stood in the rain and chose to be the man your grandfather raised. The rest, that's just learning the ropes." He looked down, still unsure. She leaned closer, her voice warm and steady. "You made the right choice, Malik. Now walk forward like the man he always believed you'd be." He nodded. Slowly. The fear was still there, sure, but something else had taken root underneath it. Something steadier, fiercer, resolve. He was going to walk into that building on Thursday, not just as a desperate man looking for work, but as someone who had earned the chance to stand there. And this time, he wasn't going to let it slip away. The lobby of Monarch Freight Systems felt more like a high-security bank than a logistics hub. White marble tiles stretched out like a runway beneath Malik's worn shoes. Glass elevators rose silently on either end of the atrium, and digital displays blinked real-time metrics from warehouses across the country. Boxes moved, trucks dispatched, routes optimized by AI. It was sleek, polished, and humming with the kind of energy that told you if you didn't know what you were doing, you'd better pretend fast. Malik clutched the badge clipped to his chest like a lifeline. His name in bold black print, Malik Carter, Temp, Ops Support. The word temp might as well have been stamped on his forehead. A mark, a reminder. He wasn't really one of them. Not yet. It was his first week. Orientation had come and gone in a blur of jargon and corporate lingo. The training room buzzed with fluorescent lights and passive-aggressive PowerPoint slides. Most of the new hires came in pairs, young professionals from universities, referrals from family, interns promoted from summer programs. Malik had come in alone, they noticed. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. They came between coffee breaks, over boxed lunches, in the corners of Slack messages he wasn't included on. "That's the guy, right? The one Harold Quinn sent in. Yeah, the rain hero. Must be nice to fix a tire and get a six-figure recommendation." Malik didn't respond. He couldn't. It was like trying to swim upstream in a current you hadn't asked for. Every time he entered a room he felt it. The eyes, the tension. Like he'd taken a seat at a table that didn't belong to him. They didn't throw it in his face, not directly, that would have been too obvious. Instead, they handed him the kinds of tasks no one wanted, formatting reports no one would read, stacking shipping labels, counting inventory, by hand, when scanners were available. One supervisor chuckled as he dropped a box on Malik's desk. "Hope you know how to alphabetize. That Ivy League connection's gotta come in handy somewhere, right?" It wasn't just the work, it was the silence. Questions asked in meetings were met with shrugs. Emails requesting clarification went ignored. When he asked about one of the route mapping systems, a team lead said, "Try Google." Worked for the rest of us. Lunch was worse. Every day Malik took his tray to the far end of the cafeteria, beneath the humming soda machine, away from the tables of coworkers laughing over group chats and podcasts. No one sat with him. No one asked why he looked tired. They didn't have to. They already had their story, some lucky kid who stumbled into an opportunity he didn't deserve. But they didn't see the nights. They didn't see him at 1 a.m., with a notepad in his lap and his laptop dimmed to save battery. They didn't see him pausing YouTube tutorials on logistics analytics, or reading company policy documents word by word, highlighting terms he didn't understand. They didn't know he carried a miniature notebook in his back pocket, filling it daily with acronyms, process flows and handwritten maps of the internal software system. They didn't know that every time someone rolled their eyes at him or made another snide joke, he wrote it down, not to retaliate, but to remember. As fuel, as proof. By the third night he stopped sleeping before midnight. By the fifth, he was answering questions no one had asked him yet. Every time Malik wanted to walk away, the voice of his grandfather whispered back, steady, low, rooted in something unshakable. Be a good man, even when you're standing in the middle of something ugly. Especially then. He emailed supervisors with thoughtful, respectful questions. Most didn't answer. A few gave vague replies. One, Mr. Rao from the data optimization team, responded at 3 a.m. with a simple, most new hires don't even ask. Keep going. That was enough. He started cross-checking internal documents, quietly correcting minor inefficiencies in the print queue for outbound orders. No one noticed at first, then someone did. A training lead pulled him aside and said, "You touched this script." Malik nodded, thinking he might have overstepped. But the man just muttered, "Huh. It runs smoother now," and walked off. Still, the cold looks didn't stop, the comments still landed. You here to learn, or just network with the top brass, wonder what kind of tires he changes on weekends. But Malik kept going. Because deep down, beneath the ache of rejection, beneath the bruises of being talked over, underestimated, and passed around like a burden, there was something else growing. Clarity. He had a choice. He could carry their judgment like chains, or he could build with it. Quietly, brick by brick. Late Thursday night, in the break room, Malik sat eating cold rice with a plastic fork. A janitor walked in to refill the soap dispensers. She nodded at him. "You the new kid?" she asked. He nodded. "They don't make it easy here," she said, setting down her bucket. "Especially not when someone starts with a little light on him. But you're still sitting here." "I guess I am," he said quietly. "Means you ain't going nowhere yet," she said. "That counts." He smiled. It wasn't much, but it was real. By the end of the first week, Malik had made no friends, earned no recognition, and wasn't on anyone's radar except the ones who wanted him gone. But something was shifting, he could feel it, and if they thought he'd fold, they didn't know who raised him. The lights in the main auditorium were warmer than Malik expected, golden and soft, not sterile like the office overheads he'd grown used to. It was the company's annual recognition gala, and everything shimmered with intent. Crisp suits, polished shoes, champagne flutes clinking just out of sync, polite laughter drifting beneath string quartet music piped in from hidden speakers. The Monarch Freight logo rotated slowly across a massive screen behind the stage, glowing like a sunrise. Malik stood off to the side in a tailored charcoal vest, the first he'd ever owned, bought 2 weeks ago, with savings he'd quietly built over months of overtime shifts and modest meals. His name had been printed on the evening's program, under one simple line, nominee, Operations Excellence Award. Just seeing it had stirred something deep in his chest, pride, yes, but also disbelief. Even now, standing under the soft heat of stage lights, it still didn't feel quite real. 12 months ago, he was a temp with no place to sit, and too many eyes watching him fail. Tonight, the same people who once shrugged off his questions were seated at white linen tables, facing the stage where his name was about to be called. The CEO took the podium, her voice strong and warm as she announced the winner, for exceptional problem-solving, innovation in workflow automation, and for leading one of the most efficient transitions in packaging operations this company has ever seen. Our Employee of the Year goes to Mr. Malik Carter. Applause rose, polite at first, then fuller, as Malik stepped forward, chest tight with the strange mix of peace and adrenaline. His shoes echoed on the wooden steps. He walked slowly, not out of hesitation, but out of reverence. Every step was years in the making. He reached the microphone, trophy already in hand, and looked out over the audience. Not everyone smiled. A few former skeptics applauded without expression, a few didn't clap at all, but most did. And in the second row, just behind the VIP table, his manager, now his direct report, lowered her eyes. Malik didn't speak right away. He let the silence breathe. Then finally he said, "A year ago I stood in the lobby not knowing how long I'd last. I didn't know the software. I didn't know the politics, and I didn't know whether people would even talk to me." A few heads bowed, others looked down at their drinks. "But I did know one thing," he continued, voice steady. "I knew how to try, I knew how to listen. And I knew that my value wasn't just in what I could do on day one, but in how fast I could learn when no one showed me how." The room had gone still, no clinking glasses, no whispered side conversations. "I didn't come here to prove anyone wrong," he added. "I came here to prove someone right. Someone who once told me to do the right thing, even when no one's watching. That's who I carried with me every night I stayed late. That's who I thought about when I was learning on my own time. And that's who I'm grateful for tonight." He gave a small nod, stepped back, and the applause returned, louder now, genuine. When he walked off the stage, a few of the same co-workers who had once dodged his emails stood and clapped, one even mouthed, "Respect." By the following Monday, Malik's nameplate was installed outside the second-floor glass office with the title Operations Team Lead etched beneath it. The same junior managers who once handed him busy work now sat across from him during planning meetings, taking notes while he reviewed performance metrics and onboarding changes he'd personally helped design. None of them spoke about the past, but they all knew. It was a quiet surrender, not of power, but of doubt. They no longer saw a name dropped into the system. They saw a man who had climbed the scaffolding, rung by rung after being dropped at the base. That Friday, when the office lights dimmed and the building emptied out, Malik didn't go straight home. He stopped by the old corner print shop, picked up a manila envelope, and walked back to his apartment. At the small kitchen table where this all began, he sat under the dim yellow light and wrote a letter. "Mr. Quinn, I don't know where you are now, or if this will even reach you, but I want to thank you, not just for what you did, but for what you saw in me. Your belief opened a door, but it was your humility that taught me how to walk through it. I hope I made good on the faith you placed in a stranger during a storm. I promise I'll do the same for someone else one day. With respect, Malik Carter." He sealed the letter and set it aside. The next morning, he dressed in a simple button-up, packed the letter in a side pocket, and drove an hour out of the city to the hillside cemetery where his grandfather had been laid to rest 5 years earlier. He stood before the headstone, wind rustling softly through the dry grass. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, hands in his pockets, eyes on the carved words. Then he exhaled and said, "I did what you told me. I didn't quit. I stayed kind, even when it was ugly, even when I didn't think I could keep going." He knelt, placed the letter gently at the base of the stone and smiled, not wide, not showy, just enough to mean something. "Hope you're proud," he whispered, and he was sure somewhere, somehow, the old man was. Sometimes, the good things don't come right away, but they always come to those who never let go of kindness. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.